My name is Amelia Vance. For the better part of my 36 years, I have been a student of quiet things. As a botanist and the founder of Terra Firma Gardens, a landscape design and ecological restoration firm based in Seattle, my life's work is to understand the slow, patient language of the earth, the way a seed holds a forest within it, the resilience of a fern uncurling in the shade, the silent, intricate network of roots that holds the world together. I was born the older of two sisters into a family that celebrated the bloom, not the root. My younger sister, Charlotte, is a wildflower field in full sun, dazzling, effortless, drawing every eye. She married her college sweetheart, Mark, and settled into a life of beautiful, sunlit domesticity in a sprawling craftsman in the suburbs of Philadelphia, complete with two bright, energetic sons and a life chronicled in perfectly filtered Instagram posts. I am, by contrast, a moss garden, quieter, thriving in the shadows, my successes measured in soil pH, native plant survival rates, and the slow, satisfying return of a degraded ecosystem to health. My parents, Eleanor and Richard, love me. I have never doubted the existence of their love, only its volume. For Charlotte, their pride is a brass band, a constant celebratory fanfare. For me, it has always been more like the hum of a distant refrigerator, present, but easily overlooked. They never quite understood the thrill I felt when Terra Firma won the National Horticultural Society's Award for Environmental Stewardship for our work turning a toxic brownfield into a thriving public wetland park. The night I called to tell them, my voice trembling with a rare and potent joy, my mother listened for a moment before saying, "Oh, that's lovely, dear. Listen, can I call you back?" Charlotte's on the other line. Her youngest, Leo, just won the trophy for most enthusiastic player on his soccer team, and we're all just over the moon. I hung up the phone that night, the heavy, prestigious award on my desk suddenly feeling weightless, almost transparent. It wasn't a deliberate cruelty. It was simply the gravitational pull of their family system, a system in which Charlotte was the sun and I was a distant, dimly lit planet. For years, I had accepted this orbit. I attended holidays, nodded through endless discussions of Charlotte's kitchen renovations, and learned to summarize my life's work into a single, palatable sentence that wouldn't disrupt the flow of conversation. I had learned to be a footnote in the story of my own family. I wasn't angry about it anymore. I was just tired. The change, when it finally came, wasn't a rebellion. It was a quiet, internal migration. It was a turning toward a different kind of light. The text message arrived on a slate-gray afternoon in early November. Rain lashed against the large warehouse windows of my office in Seattle's Georgetown neighborhood, the rhythmic drumming a familiar soundtrack to my work. I was sketching a planting plan for a new rooftop garden, my desk strewn with soil samples and books on drought-tolerant perennials, when my phone vibrated, a sharp interruption in the quiet afternoon. It was from my mother. "Hi, darling. Your father and I were just talking, and we think we're going to have a very small, quiet Thanksgiving this year. Just the immediate family. Charlotte's boys have been so much lately, and frankly, we're all a bit exhausted. We think less chaos will be better. You understand, don't you?" I stared at the words, my pencil still poised over the vellum. "You understand." It wasn't a question seeking an answer, but a statement assuming compliance. The old, familiar ache surfaced in my chest, a phantom limb of past hurts. But this time, something was different. The ache wasn't sharp. It was dull, distant, and it was quickly replaced by a feeling I could only describe as release. It was the soft, definitive click of a door swinging gently shut on a room I had been trying to leave for a very long time. Just weeks before, she had called to confirm my Thanksgiving travel plans. "Amelia, you'll fly in on the Tuesday before, won't you?" she'd asked, a statement, not a question. "Charlotte's handling the turkey, but I've put you down for your roasted Brussels sprouts and that wild rice salad. The boys are so looking forward to seeing their Aunt Amy." I had hesitated, a half-formed plan for a solo hiking trip in the Cascades on my lips. "Actually, Mom, I was thinking of staying on the West Coast this year. It's been a really demanding quarter." The silence on the other end had been thick with disappointment. "But it's Thanksgiving, Amelia. It's for family. You can't just not come." Now, this text. It was the perfect solution for them. It reframed my potential absence as their choice, their need for quiet, absolving them of the discomfort of my choosing myself over their established traditions. It was a neat and tidy piece of emotional architecture. My fingers, steady and sure, typed out a reply. "Of course, Mom. That sounds very restful. Enjoy the peace and quiet. I pressed send before the ghost of old obligations could whisper any doubts in my ear. What my mother couldn't know was that her message wasn't canceling my holiday, it was liberating it. For what they perceived as my lonely, work-filled life on the other side of the country was, in reality, a world I had been carefully and quietly cultivating, a world they had never bothered to truly see. For months earlier, after a particularly successful year for terra firma, I had done something impulsive and profound. I had taken a significant portion of my life's savings and bought a piece of land. It wasn't a sensible downtown condo or a strategic investment property. It was a ghost of a place, a forgotten estate on Orcas Island, one of the misty, fur-clad jewels of the San Juan archipelago. I had named it the Golden Bough. It was a place of wild, untamed beauty, a rambling, cedar-shingled main house and 3 small guest cottages, all perched on a bluff overlooking the steely, silver waters of the Salish Sea. The property was in a state of beautiful decay, its shingles furred with moss, its wide porches sagging slightly, its gardens choked with blackberry brambles. But it had good bones. And it had a magnificent, cathedral-like glass greenhouse, its panes clouded with age, that had once housed a renowned collection of orchids. It was a project. It was my sanctuary. Every other weekend, I would take the ferry from Anacortes, the salt spray on my face washing away the city, and I would work. I hired a local islander, a retired carpenter named Silas, to help me restore the structures, and I spent my hours in the garden, my hands in the dirt, slowly, methodically, clearing the overgrowth and dreaming of what could be. The Golden Vow was my secret, a quiet promise I was making to myself. It was a place to put down my own roots. And I had no intention of spending my first Thanksgiving there alone. While my connection to my immediate family had grown thin and frayed, other branches of our family tree were strong and vibrant. My Aunt Iris, my mother's sister, was a watercolor artist who lived in Portland. She was the one who had given me my first field guide to wildflowers and taught me that beauty was often found in the most overlooked places. Her husband, my Uncle Leo, a gentle, bookish history professor, had always spoken to me as an equal, asking thoughtful questions about my work and listening to the answers with genuine interest. He was the one who had driven 6 hours to attend my graduate school thesis presentation when my own father had a can't-miss golf game. Then there were my cousins, particularly Sam, a folk musician with a heart as big as his beard, and his wife and 2 young daughters. We were the quiet corner of the family, the artists and the thinkers, the ones who often felt out of sync with the loud, competitive energy of the holidays back east. We were the family that had always chosen to see one another. A week after my mother's text, I sat at a sturdy, reclaimed wood table in the great room of the Golden Bough, a fire crackling in the massive stone hearth. The late afternoon sun, a rare gift in a Pacific Northwest November, slanted through the tall windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I opened my laptop and began to type. Subject: a Thanksgiving invitation, of a different sort. My dearest family, I wrote, my heart beating a steady, hopeful rhythm. I have a secret I'm finally ready to share. For the past few months, I've been restoring a beautiful, forgotten old property on Orcas Island. I've named it the Golden Bough. It's been a labor of love, and it's finally at a point where it needs to be filled with warmth, music, and laughter. I know this is very last minute, but I would be so honored if you would consider spending Thanksgiving here with me this year. Think of it as a housewarming and a holiday all in one. The cottages are ready, the larder will be full, and the sea air is good for the soul. My treat, of course. I just want to share this place that has come to mean so much to me, with the people who mean so much to me. I attached a single photo I'd taken the previous evening, the view from the porch at twilight, the dark silhouettes of the fir trees framing the silver-gray water, a single boat a distant speck on the horizon. I took a deep breath and clicked send. I wasn't just inviting them for a meal. I was inviting them into the new landscape of my life. The replies came back like a warm tide. Aunt Iris was first. Amy, my love. I knew you were nurturing something wonderful out there. An old estate on an island? It sounds like a dream. Leo and I are already packing our paintbrushes and our books. We wouldn't miss it for the world. Expect us a day early to help. Sam called me, his voice booming with enthusiasm over the phone. Nora, this is epic. A secret island hideaway. Maria and the girls will lose their minds. A Thanksgiving with actual nature and no passive-aggressive dinner conversation? We are so in. I'm bringing my guitar. One by one, they all responded. Uncles, aunts, cousins. The quiet ones, the gentle ones. Within 48 hours, the main house and all 3 cottages were spoken for. 18 people in total. Every bed would be warm, every chair at the table would be filled. And not one of them belonged to my mother, my father, or my sister. They had wanted a quiet Thanksgiving. I was about to host a quiet symphony, a harmony of souls who knew how to listen. The week before Thanksgiving was a blur of joyful, focused energy. The golden bough, which had for months been filled with the sounds of hammers and my own solitary footsteps, was now humming with preparation. The air, once smelling only of old wood and damp earth, was now fragrant with beeswax, lemon oil, and the constant, comforting scent of wood smoke from the fireplace. I had enlisted the help of a chef from the nearby village of East Sound, a woman named Isabel who specialized in an earthy, elegant cuisine that celebrated the bounty of the islands. Our menu was a collaboration, a story told in flavors: Dungeness crab cakes, a brined and roasted turkey from a local farm, stuffing made with chanterelle mushrooms foraged from the surrounding woods, and a dessert table featuring a rustic apple blackberry galette and a pumpkin cheesecake with a ginger snap crust. I prepared each cottage with care, leaving personal touches that were small gestures of love and recognition. For Aunt Iris and Uncle Leo, a stack of art books and a new volume of poetry. For Sam and his family, a basket of craft supplies for the girls and a collection of local folk music. These were not grand pronouncements, but quiet acknowledgments, my way of saying, in my own language, I see you. I know what brings you joy. The day before my family was due to arrive, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Amelia, sweetheart," she began, her voice wrapped in a cloak of careful concern. "I'm just calling to check in. I do hope you're not feeling too lonely out there with the holiday coming up. I feel a bit terrible, but you know how it is with Charlotte's boys. Your father just needs a bit of calm these days." I was standing on the bluff behind the main house, looking out as a ferry glided silently across the water, its lights a soft glow in the gathering dusk. The air was cold and sharp and tasted of salt and wet cedar. "Please don't worry about me, Mom," I said, my voice as calm and steady as the water below. "I've made arrangements. I won't be alone." There was a beat of silence, filled with a note of surprise. "Oh? Are you spending the day with some friends from work?" The unspoken assumption hung in the air, that my life was a small, contained thing, a life she could easily imagine and categorize. "Something like that," I replied, a small, private smile touching my lips. "It's all taken care of. Actually, I'm right in the middle of some last-minute things, so I should probably run." "Last-minute things?" "Amelia, you're not spending the holiday working, are you? We've talked about your tendency to." Her voice trailed off as I saw the headlights of a familiar Subaru winding up the long, gravel driveway. It was Aunt Iris and Uncle Leo, true to their word, arriving a day early with a car full of groceries, blankets, and irrepressible good cheer. "I have to go, Mom," I said, a genuine warmth spreading through my chest, chasing away the last of the November chill. "My company is here. Give my love to everyone." I ended the call before she could ask another question, the silence that followed feeling clean and decisive. I tucked my phone in my pocket and walked down the path to meet them, my arms open wide. Aunt Iris embraced me in a hug that smelled of oil paints and wool. "Oh, Amelia. It's a fairy tale," she whispered, her artist's eyes taking in the mossy roofs and the dramatic silhouette of the firs against the twilight sky. "Your mother has no idea, does she? What a world you've built for yourself." I smiled, a real, unburdened smile. "No," I said softly. "But she might be about to get a sense of it." Uncle Leo, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners, clapped me gently on the shoulder. "It's their loss, kiddo. But I suspect the family telegraph is going to be working overtime by the end of this weekend." "I have a feeling you're right," I admitted, the sea breeze catching my hair. A very strong feeling. The next day was a steady, joyous tide of arrivals. Cars and island taxis crunched up the driveway, each one delivering a piece of my chosen family. The quiet halls of the Golden Bough filled with the sounds of reunion, booming laughter, the excited squeals of children discovering the rocky beach below, the clinking of mugs as I poured hot, spiced cider. The house, which had been waiting so patiently, finally came alive. It was breathing. On Thanksgiving Eve, we gathered in the great room. A storm had rolled in, and the rain beat a soothing rhythm on the roof while the fire in the hearth roared and snapped. The room was a tableau of contentment. Sam was softly strumming his guitar in a corner, his daughters asleep with their heads in his lap. Uncle Leo was reading a story aloud to a cluster of captivated cousins. Aunt Iris was sketching the scene in her notebook. I stood by the window, watching the waves crash on the shore below, a glass of deep red wine in my hand. My heart felt like a well-tended garden, peaceful, thriving, and deeply rooted. I turned to the room and lifted my glass. "I just want to say thank you," I began, my voice a little thick with emotion. The quiet conversations and the soft music faded as all eyes turned to me. "Thank you for coming all this way, for bringing your light into this place. For months, this was just a house. A beautiful, empty shell. Tonight, because of all of you, it's a home." I looked around at the faces, each one a map of love and shared history. To family, I toasted. The kind that shows up in every sense of the word. A chorus of clinking glasses answered me, the sound a small, perfect harmony against the rhythm of the rain. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that the next day would be more than just a holiday. It would be a landmark. A new beginning. Thanksgiving morning at the Golden Bough was a masterpiece of sensory details. The storm had passed, leaving the air washed clean and the world outside glistening. Sunlight, sharp and clear, poured through the great room windows, making the sea glitter. From the kitchen, the scent of Isabel's genius was already wafting through the house, the earthy aroma of roasting turkey and herbs, the sweet tang of cranberries simmering with orange peel, the rich, buttery promise of pie crusts baking. The house was alive with a low, happy hum. The children, bundled in sweaters, were out on the porch, their laughter carrying on the crisp air as they competed to find the most interesting piece of driftwood. In the great room, Uncle Leo had organized a sprawling, multi-generational board game. I stood for a moment, just inside the doorway, leaning against the frame and committing the scene to memory. Aunt Iris and Sam's wife, Maria, were setting the long, rustic dining table, not with formal china, but with a beautiful collection of mismatched vintage plates, woven placemats, and small bouquets of ferns and winter-flowering heather from the garden. It was a scene of perfect, authentic life. My phone, which I'd left on a bookshelf, buzzed with an incoming text. I picked it up. It was from Charlotte. "Happy Thanksgiving. Mom just wanted me to check in. Hope you're not too sad being all by yourself today. We can FaceTime later if you get lonely." I looked up from the screen at the vibrant, joyful life teeming around me. Sam was teaching his nephew a new chord on the guitar. Aunt Iris was laughing, her head thrown back, at something Uncle Leo had whispered to her. The air was thick with connection, with shared joy. Lonely? It was the most deeply connected I had felt in years. A gentle smile played on my lips as I typed my reply. "Thanks for thinking of me. I'm actually in the middle of a few things here. Have a lovely, peaceful day with the family." I put the phone on silent and slid it into the pocket of my jeans, turning my full attention back to the present, a gift I was determined to fully unwrap. Just then, a young man with a kind, weathered face and a camera bag slung over his shoulder arrived. It was Finn, a local photographer Aunt Iris had insisted I hire. He had a gift for invisibility, moving through the rooms like a gentle breeze, his lens capturing the moments that mattered. The way Sam's daughter looked at her father with pure adoration as he played music, the shared, knowing glance between Uncle Leo and Aunt Iris, the concentration on a young cousin's face as he carefully placed a log on the fire. "This is the real stuff," he said to me quietly, showing me a shot on his camera's display. It was a photo of me, caught unawares, listening to one of Uncle Leo's stories, a small, genuine smile on my face. "You can't stage this kind of happiness. It just is." "Yes," I said, my heart full. "It just is." Just as Isabel was putting the final touches on the magnificent golden brown turkey, my phone began to vibrate insistently in my pocket. I saw my mother's name. Excusing myself, I stepped out onto the wide, windswept porch. "Amelia, darling," she began, her voice a little too bright. "I know you're busy with your work, but I was just thinking, are you sure you wouldn't like to see us on FaceTime for dessert? Charlotte made her pumpkin chiffon pie, you know, the one you love." From where I stood, I could hear the sounds of my own celebration through the thick wooden door, the swell of laughter, the clinking of glasses as Sam proposed a toast. I could see through the window as my family began to gather around the laden table, their faces glowing in the firelight. "That's so thoughtful, Mom, but I'm actually just about to sit down to dinner myself," I said, the words feeling both simple and revolutionary. "Dinner? By yourself?" she asked. The background noise from my side must have finally registered because she paused. "Amelia? Where are you? It sounds like you have company." I took a deep, steadying breath of the salt-laced air. "I'm on Orcas Island, Mom. In Washington. I bought a place up here a few months back." An old estate called the Golden Vow. The silence that greeted this news was vast and profound. It was a silence filled with the whirring gears of a mind trying to reconcile a new, unbelievable reality with a long-held, comfortable fiction. You bought an estate?" she finally stammered. "On an island? Why in the world didn't you tell us?" I looked out at the dark water, the last light of day painting the sky in shades of lavender and rose. The old Amelia would have apologized, would have made excuses. The woman I was becoming simply told the truth. "It just never seemed like there was a good time," I said gently. "You all have so much going on. I didn't want to be a disruption." I glanced back at the warm, inviting scene in the dining room. "And I especially didn't want to interfere with your plans for a quiet holiday." Another pause, this one charged with a dawning, uncomfortable understanding. "Who do you have with you, Amelia?" she asked, her voice tight. "Oh, just family," I said, my voice soft. "Aunt Iris and Uncle Leo are here. Sam and Maria and the girls. All the cousins, actually." I let the words settle in the space between us. "Everyone's here. Everyone except you, Dad, and Charlotte." I heard a small, sharp intake of breath. "Everyone? They're all there? With you?" "Yes. Most of them came in yesterday," I said, my voice still gentle. "We've been having a lovely time. We went for a long walk on the beach this morning. We're planning a bonfire tonight." The silence that followed was heavy, weighted with the full, sudden gravity of their exclusion. But they always come to us for Thanksgiving," she whispered, the words sounding fragile, like dried leaves. "It's our family tradition." A wave of something akin to pity washed over me. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reflection. I was simply holding up a mirror. "I know, Mom," I said softly. "But traditions can change. Sometimes, people need to go where they feel welcome. Where they feel truly seen." "That's not fair, Amelia. We just wanted." "I have to go, Mom," I interrupted, but my voice was kind. "Isabel is serving, and my family is waiting for me." I took a breath. "I truly hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening." I ended the call and stood for a moment longer on the porch, the cold air on my face feeling like a benediction. A quiet hand touched my shoulder. It was Aunt Iris, her eyes full of a deep and knowing compassion. "Was that your mother?" she asked softly. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. She wrapped her arms around me in a firm, warm hug. "It takes courage to tend to your own garden, my love," she whispered. "Especially when others are used to you only weeding theirs. I am so proud of the woman you are." She led me back inside, into the circle of light and laughter and love. The rest of the evening passed in a beautiful, warm haze. The food was a revelation, but the conversation was the true feast. We shared stories, we laughed until our sides ached, we raised our glasses in toast after toast. My phone buzzed in my pocket throughout the meal, texts from Charlotte, missed calls from my father, but I let them go unanswered. I chose to be present, to be fully immersed in the warmth of this chosen family, in this home I had made. This wasn't a statement to those who weren't there. It was a celebration of those who were. And it was more than I had ever dared to dream of. The morning after Thanksgiving, I woke to a profound sense of peace. The house was quiet, save for the gentle crackle of the embers in the hearth and the distant cry of a gull. I made myself a cup of tea and stepped out onto the porch. The world was awash in the soft, pearlescent light of a Pacific Northwest dawn. Down on the beach, I could see the small figures of Sam and his daughters, already exploring the tide pools. My phone, which I had left on the kitchen counter, was alight with notifications. Finn had sent a link to the photo gallery late last night, and the images had already begun to weave their way through our family's digital life. They were breathtaking. He had captured the soul of the gathering, the warm, candlelit glow of the dinner table against the backdrop of the stormy sea, a candid of me and Aunt Iris, our heads bent together in laughter over a shared secret, the children, their faces alight with wonder, roasting marshmallows at the bonfire we'd built on the beach after dinner. Aunt Iris had posted an album to her social media, titled simply, "Thanksgiving at the Golden Bough." Her caption read, "So much gratitude for a holiday spent in a place of deep beauty and even deeper connection." A powerful reminder that family is not always about who you were born to, but who shows up for you. Thank you, Amelia Vance, for building a sanctuary and inviting us in. The comments section was already a flurry of activity from friends of my parents, their neighbors, people from the tight-knit suburban community I had grown up in. "Eleanor, this looks magical. I didn't know you were all on the West Coast." "Richard, what a stunning place. Is this a new family retreat?" "Wow, what a gathering." "Who is the Amelia Vance who hosted?" The first phone call was from Charlotte. Her voice was sharp, a blade of indignation and hurt. "Amelia, why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, forgoing any greeting. "You bought an estate? And you invited the entire family except for us?" Mom is beside herself. She hasn't stopped crying. I watched a bald eagle soar in a lazy circle over the water. I kept my voice calm. "Tell you, Charlotte? Like you told me about the last-minute anniversary party you threw for Mom and Dad? Or the family portrait session you organized that I only found out about when I saw the photos on the wall? That's different. Those were complicated to organize." "No, Charlotte, it's not different," I said, and for the first time, I felt only a quiet sadness for the chasm between us. "For years, the three of you have operated as a closed circle. And you have every right to do that. But I have a right to create my own circle, too." I heard one of her sons shouting in the background. Her voice dropped. "Mom feels like you did this to punish her. Her friends are all calling. It's humiliating." "This wasn't about punishment, Charlotte. It was about preservation." "My own," I said simply. "I'm sorry she's upset, but maybe this is a chance for her to feel, just for a moment, what it's like to be on the outside looking in." I paused, then asked gently, "I hope you all had the peaceful holiday you wanted. How was it?" There was a long, telling silence. "It was quiet," she finally admitted, her voice deflating. "Too quiet. Dad watched football. The boys were restless. And Mom just sat at the table, looking at her phone. It didn't feel like a holiday." "No," I agreed softly. "I don't suppose it did." My father called next. He tried the old approach, the one that had always worked before. His voice softened with a paternal disappointment designed to make me feel small and selfish. "Amelia," he began. "Your mother and I feel that you have deliberately created a rift in this family." "Dad, I'm actually just about to go for a walk on the beach with Uncle Leo and the kids," I said, establishing a new reality. "Is this going to take long?" "This is about family unity," he insisted. "Your mother is heartbroken." "I'm sure she is," I replied, my voice even. "But Dad, I have been heartbroken for years. Every time my work was dismissed, every time my life was treated as secondary to Charlotte's. The only difference is that I held my heartbreak quietly. I didn't make it anyone else's problem. I used it to build something. But to go behind our backs, to plan something so elaborate. Like the holidays you planned that I was simply expected to attend, with my role already assigned?" I asked. "Being taken for granted doesn't feel good, does it?" The line went silent. I could hear his breathing, the faint sound of a television in the background. It was the sound of a world that had been, for a very long time, comfortably, unthinkingly centered on itself. "No," he said at last, his voice stripped of its authority. "It doesn't." "Then I'll leave you to your day," I said, not unkindly. "I have to go. My family is waiting." The rest of the weekend passed in a gentle, restorative rhythm. We hiked, we read by the fire, we cooked together, we talked for hours. The Golden Vow was no longer a secret project, it was a home, consecrated by love and laughter. On the final morning, as the last of the cars was being loaded, Aunt Iris hugged me tightly. "They'll call about Christmas," she whispered. "Be prepared for the grand gesture of reconciliation." I nodded. "I know." After the last ferry had carried my family back to the mainland, I stood alone on the porch. The silence that returned was not empty, it was peaceful, resonant with the joyful echoes of the past few days. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Amelia, your father and I have been thinking. We were wrong. We would love to talk about Christmas and about everything. Whenever you're ready." I read the message and then I read it again. There was no demand, no assumption. There was an open door. The old Amelia would have rushed through it, eager to soothe and to please. The woman I was now simply stood there, in the quiet of her own sanctuary, and considered the invitation. I didn't reply right away. Forgiveness, I was learning, wasn't a single act, but a process, like the slow, patient work of restoring a garden. It required clearing the old, tangled growth, tilling the soil, and making space for something new and healthier to grow. It couldn't be rushed. I slipped my phone into my pocket and walked down the path toward the greenhouse. Pushing open the old, creaking door, I stepped inside. The air was warm and humid, smelling of damp earth and possibility. On a long bench, a collection of orchid seedlings I had been carefully nurturing were showing the first, tender signs of new life. I looked at them, these small, resilient beings, and I felt a profound sense of kinship. For years, I had felt like a dormant seed, waiting for the right conditions to truly grow. Here, in the quiet light of this new life I had built for myself, I was finally beginning to bloom. The future with my parents and sister was uncertain, a landscape yet to be designed. But for the first time, I felt I had the strength, the vision, and the self-respect to be one of its architects. And that, I knew, was a reason for a quiet and deeply profound Thanksgiving.